Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and our first D23 video recap that we're doing, which it's not going to be too extensive, but today we're really going to break down Tales of the Jedi, which is a trailer launching for a Star Wars animated show coming out this fall, which is a bit of an anthology series that follows two specific characters with two storylines, and we're going to get into that with your co-host Blake right here in the Escape Pod. So, let's get into it.
Another happy landing.
Hello, hello.
Hello there.
Well, I feel like it's been a little while since the two of us sat down and did a podcast episode, but you know.
Yeah, it has been a hot minute. That's for sure.
Yeah, because our audience does know that I was away and we pre-recorded a few of those episodes that dropped in the month of August. But I think whoever tuned into the Galaxy's Edge recent review, has had kind of the lowdown on that, and I guess now is the time to just for people going on vacation and stuff like that. But I feel like it's been certainly an interesting experience, kind of experiencing the galaxy far, far away, and it was great. It was great. My last kind of couple words, though, I got to say that my last couple words were a hardcore Star Wars fan. I said something along the lines of your money's kind of better spent elsewhere, but it was a bit harsh. I mean, obviously, Star Wars fans should go and check it out. It was a good time, and it was only kind of in retrospect. I was like, maybe I should kind of rephrase that. I think what I meant to say was, don't burn your life savings, dreaming like this is the place of all places. That's pretty much all I kind of meant by saying what I said. I didn't want to discourage anyone by going, though.
Yeah, because I was listening. I believe your specific words were Bantha Poodoo.
Nice try.
One of the shot.
Should roll one of my chance cube dice, and
Yeah, exactly.
We're back, and D23 recently hitting the headlines, and obviously a lot of news coming out of that. Tales of the Jedi, for one, something that was announced to us at I believe Celebration, and then already kind of coming at us with a full steam ahead sort of thing, right? Because after Andor, that's the next thing is Tales of the Jedi.
Interesting. Is that coming out before Bad Batch?
Yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? You might be right, actually. I think season 2 of the Bad Batch comes out before Tales of the Jedi. So Tales of the Jedi comes out October 26th, 2022. And, excuse me, the Bad Batch season 2 comes out in a couple weeks, I think it is. When is it here? Service 2022, September, I believe. Yeah, September 2022. Oh. That's unless it was pushed again. I mean, I think that's the show that they've been shuffling around a lot. I mean, I know the date for Bad Batch has changed maybe 2 or 3 times now at this point. It's a little.
There's just too much going on. They're trying to space it out, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little nuts. So the last I heard was September 28th is when it's going to happen. With the week prior to that, sorry,
2 weeks.
Yeah. So next Wednesday. So this is September 21st. That's the premiere of Andor, and they're shoveling out 3 episodes for the premiere of Andor at once on the same day. And then the following week on the Wednesday is when the Bad Batch premiere is supposed to come out. However, I would not be surprised if they shifted that back and waited until Andor was over. But I mean, obviously they're trying to coordinate the Star Wars shows along with the release of all the Marvel shows and just about everything else that they've got being dumped on there. There's a lot, right? They want to keep the platform interesting for people to stay subscribed. So it would make sense if they just kind of spaced it out a little bit more. But I do know that not everyone does the animated shows, right? So there's that as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
But they're also different like audiences. Like Andor's, I think, is going for a more serious tone, so probably more, let's say, teenager and adult oriented. And then Bad Batch is like Disney XD. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so maybe they're looking at the timing of these shows slightly differently. You know, it might, to us it's like, oh, one Star Wars show, another Star Wars show, but to some people it might be like, hey, I'm gonna watch Andor, and what's the Bad Batch? You know, so it might not be important enough to justify every audience staying subscribed just because 2 Star Wars shows are back to back. A lot of people might only count the one as one that they're gonna watch. So
yeah, because I know because we'll be reviewing both, so it's become a full-time job.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna have a busy couple weeks ahead. So I mean, Tales of the Jedi right around the corner after that. So it's hard to believe. I mean, we're getting 3 Star Wars shows by the end of this year. That's kind of crazy.
That one surprises me the most because we knew the other 2 have been coming for a long time, and then Tales of the Jedi just kind of came out of left field at Celebration.
Yeah.
And so I assumed it was going to be like a next year sort of thing.
Right. I thought so too. I guess they're kind of they brought it up a little bit just because it is only 6 episodes, and it is quite in that regards it's quite short. I assume each episode is probably Clone Wars style, 20 minutes long. It is done in the same art style as Clone Wars and the Bad Batch. And I mean, just to kick things off here, the premise of Tales of the Jedi, it's not necessarily based on the Dark Horse comics series, because a lot of people might hear me say Tales of the Jedi and go, oh yeah, I remember that series. That was a great comic book series. We had the whole Sith origins kind of storyline. Tales of the Jedi was great. It had a lot of pre-Republic movies. It was like ancient history sort of deal. A lot of great stories with Tales of the Jedi, and this animated show just takes the title and that's it. There's nothing in common with the Dark Horse series at all. It's its own thing, and 3 episodes will be focused on a young Count Dooku, and 3 episodes will be focused in on Ahsoka Tano at various points in each of those characters' lives. The show will kick off with Ahsoka Tano, because the first episode's called Life and Death, and releasing October 26th. And the premise is Ahsoka Tano's birth is seen along with her first hunting trip with her mother, Pav T. So, that's the...
Who is voiced by the lady from...
Yeah, Janina Kavankar. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right, and so she's coming back into the fandom. Iden Versio, the actress who plays...
that's what it is. It was an I name. I kept wanting to say Igor, but that's not it.
Right. Igor Versio.
Right.
Versio? Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
I remember also we really liked the Battlefront 2 book as well. That was like a prequel to the Battlefront 2 game. I think you read that one, right? Pretty sure. Or maybe you just read the first one. I can't remember.
I read. I think I did.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It was after you convinced me, because the first one was so hard to get through.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. So you kept telling me the next one's better. I think I did, but I don't remember anything that happened. Right.
Well, not super important, but it's kind of cool that she's coming back. I mean, it's a voice role. It could be anyone playing the character. It's kind of special that it's someone who's notable, but not that notable that everyone would know her. And to play a character as important as Ahsoka's mother is actually kind of a neat gig, And here's the whole thing. I mean, before we start looking at this trailer, I just got to say this. I think quite a few months ago, I've reiterated myself multiple times as history's gone on to say that the Clone Wars, even though it's ended, they could still finish it. They could just put out some Clone Wars movies on Disney Plus. Disney Plus is just the venue that they can do this, and nobody would question it, right? No one would care. Like they're doing all this weird timeline stuff all over the place. You know, we're getting books in one era, books in another era. You know, shows here, shows there. You know, they're going all over the place.
Like shotgunning canon.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, you know, leave it up to the fans to kind of figure this out. But I mean, in my opinion, I think they could finish Clone Wars. I think they could just do the arcs that they would have done, assuming that they were arcs. You know, stitch those three together, make a Clone Wars movie out of it, call it Star Wars: The Clone Wars: something.
Let me be the bad guy on this though.
All right.
Would it be the same, knowing that Dave Filoni wouldn't be as involved because he's busy with live action stuff?
That's a great question. I feel like if his role is shifted just enough that he wouldn't be involved as much in terms of directorial position, then...
Because I'm guessing it'd be the same level as the Resistance animated series.
Right. Well, now his actual job title is kind of overseeing all of the TV stuff. And the last couple episodes, so if we look at, I don't know, let's see here. Maybe season 7, episode 3 or something like that. The director was Bosco NG. I don't know how you pronounce a 2-letter last name, but it basically, the director of that episode wasn't Dave Filoni. The writers weren't Dave Filoni. So like towards the end part of the Clone Wars, as great as season 7 was, totally overlooked. You know, Dave has, you know, obviously supervising everything that's going on. But he's kind of like the Palpatine of the construction of the show. Like eventually he kind of went from a more kind of directing.
It was more like Darth Vader.
He took George's seat. He kind of took George's seat at the table, right? Like he's kind of just seeing everybody. Then? Yeah, I think Kathy's just kind of, you know, she's the budget lady. Like, you know, she like Dave goes to Kathy, I want to do this. I think we can do it. You know, she's just kind of like, yeah, people love this story. It's a great story. We've got the money for it. Let's go, kind of thing. I feel like maybe that's what she would do. I don't know. I mean, it's Kathy. She could probably walk in the room anytime she wants, right? But as far as the actual kind of who's involved intimately in this show, Dave certainly is involved very much so with the ending of Clone Wars. I mean, it's his baby. He got to finish it. But if you look down at the credits as to who got what credit, he's not a writer and he's not a director on every single one of those episodes. So I feel like doing a Clone Wars movie, you know, for him to have, you know, a good writer that he knows and trusts, as well as a director he's worked with before, most likely one on one of the finale episodes of season 7 of Clone Wars, or Bad Batch, he could definitely have some involvement there and just have someone else kind of taking the main load of work and him just being in the supervising position, right? So like, that's definitely a great question. And, you know, it does make me wonder, you know, knowing that Bad Batch is directed and kind of supervised by a different guy, not him, it does have a slightly different vibe than Clone Wars does.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, it is also about a different group of characters. It's similar but not the same, right? And so, you know, it is definitely something to consider for sure. It also makes me wonder how Tales of the Jedi is going to turn out, because I don't know how much he's involved with that. I guess we'll find out. But you know,
and would they re-release episodes that have been turned into comics and books?
Yeah, that's another great question. Like, I mean, you know, a couple character arcs got adapted. You know, the Darth Maul Son of Dathomir arc into the comic book, and then there was the Dark Disciple novel, which adapted 8 episodes of the Clone Wars, season 7 or 8, whatever it was going to be. It was supposed to be 8 seasons long, but you know, it got shortened to basically season 6 was a half season, then season 7 was a half season. So we're short like 2 seasons worth of episodes, right? So yeah, it's tough to kind of determine where all that would take place, but you know, it'd be cool if they did end up finishing it. I'd be fine with them adapting, taking the novel, which really fleshed out the original scripts, and then adapting the novel for screen. That would be kind of neat to see.
That's what I'm thinking too. But yeah. I have a feeling that just the way these things tend to go, there'll also be a little bit of recanonizing, little
Yeah,
retconning and
yeah.
stuff.
Which I think we're gonna get into that a little bit because there's a very particular story in this Tales of the Jedi arc, which kind of conflicts with a novel that you and I both read a couple years ago. So let's
Is it
let's.
the Ahsoka novel?
It is. It's a good guess.
It's always the Ahsoka novel.
It's always the Ahsoka novel. I know. I feel bad for E.K. Johnson, but that novel gets hit hard with retcons.
It's so early in the recanoning.
It is. It is. We'll take a stab at that subject again in just a moment. But so I got the teaser here, kind of ready to go. So if it's good on your end, we'll pull the lever and call it Lightspeed, shall we?
Let's punch it.
All right.
Everywhere there is life, but you must face death. Honor it. Do not fear it. Jedi. Ahsoka is Jedi.
The best way I can protect you is to teach you how to protect yourself.
Master Dooku.
I want to bring peace and order to the galaxy.
Master, stop!
It is the only way you will truly have victory.
My Padawan. Again. Again.
Dooku, stand down.
I'm tired of fighting.
I've been warning them about the coming darkness. Let's hope all that training pays off.
And who might you be?
Wow. I mean, I gotta say that's some trailer right there. What's your initial impression of that?
My first thoughts are Dooku's nose looks too big.
I mean, that was always like, if you look at it like though in the Clone Wars, I mean, it's always kind of accentuated.
But it's different.
Yeah.
Because like that, they made him look kind of like a villain, whereas this, like, how can I describe it? It looks like something that I would have drawn when I was 10.
Right. So, I mean, first of all, I love the music. I don't know if that's just for the trailer or what, but I mean, it certainly certainly got some epic vibes about this show. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the music definitely reminded me of the season 6 trailer, like stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So let's. I got it prepared here, so we can just kind of flick through and kind of go shot by shot if we see anything. Clearly, kind of the main parties under the spotlight is Dooku and Ahsoka. Each of them probably getting 3 episodes out of the 6-episode season, and we kick things off in the series with Ahsoka's mother Pav-Ti saying everywhere there's life, and we get a beautiful shot of like the mountains, kind of, probably as Ahsoka's homeworld, I guess, and then some wildlife in the tall grasses, and then she says, "But you must face death," and I got the subtitles on, by the way, for this trailer.
It's interesting that she's telling Ahsoka that, but we're looking at human, like it's not. I'm blanking on what her race is called, but it does look like it's on her homeworld.
Yeah, the Torgrutas. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
You know what's interesting about what she says about everywhere you face death? I guess it's kind of interesting that she's first of all looking at probably some massive tiger sitting in the tall grasses there that's probably ready to eat just about everyone. But it flashes forward to, and here's kind of the key little element about the anthology series taking place over a vast amount of time, we'll see Ahsoka at 3 stages in her life. We'll see a flashback to her as a young child, and probably an episode focusing on her and her mother. And I would assume leading up to that legendary moment that Dave has always probably wanted to put on screen, which is Plo Koon taking Ahsoka away from her mother and her family into the Jedi Order, right? Which is always a very emotional thing, because of course we all very vividly remember how Anakin leaves his mother and how kind of touching that was, and the very famous line like, "Will I ever see you again?" And it's always just like a very difficult moment to watch, like in the movie, and I think like it's we're probably gonna get something similar in this particular show as well. The second part that we see her in is I'm kind of flashing forward a bit. We're seeing Anakin as well as a younger guy early on in the Clone Wars period, because he's got his short hair again, and he's rigorously training Ahsoka with her original green lightsaber with the Phase 1 clones. They're in a circle formation and stuff. So we're getting a little flash in after he takes her on as a Padawan. And then there's a part at the very end of the trailer which we see is post Order 66. So the whole thing is kind of jumping around a lot. And the next shot in the trailer is Padme's funeral. There is people standing with the candles, and it's very kind of gloomy and gray. And if you kind of look closely, it's like I'm letting the shot kind of play out. And
the shot's at the beginning, right?
And yeah, and then the next shot after you see a couple people with candles is Padme's funeral. She's being towed by the this is at like 7 seconds. She's being towed in Naboo by the cattle or something that are pulling her coffin.
Mm-hmm.
And
the space horses.
Yeah, and I think there's a shot in the trailer where this happens. It might come up again later, but I'm pretty sure Ahsoka is one of those people, and I think it's such a great sense of something I've never questioned about the end of Revenge of the Sith is just the accelerated time frame that they do. It's something that almost no other Star Wars movie does, where most Star Wars movies just end, right? Whereas Revenge of the Sith, because it was supposed to be the last one, George kind of did this thing where it's like, oh, now we flash to, we go from the pregnancy to, we're going to split the kids apart, hide them away and all that stuff. But yeah, you get these 3 flashes of different things happening. I mean, you have Vader in the suit on board the Star Destroyer looking over the Death Star. You see Obi-Wan's already gone to Tatooine to deliver Luke. You see Bail and Bria Organa are already kind of cradling Leia on Alderaan. So there's a bit of a time gap there, and Padme's funeral and her body being sent from Pulis Massa to Naboo and stuff. There's a lot of like time jumping, right? So in that little kind of express mix of stuff going on, I guess Ahsoka found the time to get from that dust ball planet after the Purge with Rex, when they put all the helmets on the spikes and have their kind of goodbye at the very end of the Clone Wars. There's a flash forward with Vader, obviously years later, but kind of like immediately after that scene, assuming they fly off in the Y-wing that they managed to salvage, I guess they went to Padme's funeral, because that would have happened pretty closely after the Purge, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I never considered that they would have actually attended that.
Right. Yeah. I love the idea that she did, though, because, now it's just one extra thing that I'm going to watch Revenge of the Sith and just kind of know that she's in there. And it's going to be a very, it's a very special thought to think that, that's kind of the spirit of that movie is just kind of still being, almost widened. Expanded. Like George's presence within Star Wars is being held strong through shows like this that kind of replay a moment over for us, and it's just seen through a new lens. So I appreciate that a lot.
The camera pans back a little bit, and then there's something else that's filled in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm really, really loving that. So we flash to black, and then now we get a shot of, what is this? The tree in the Jedi Temple? Is it a tree in the Jedi Temple? And Dooku's beneath the tree.
Oh yeah, they had the scales wrong when I was looking at it. I didn't realize Dooku was down there. I thought it was like a really tiny tree.
Ah, okay. Gotcha.
No, it's a full size tree, so it probably is in the temple.
Yeah.
Is this the tree that's in the Dooku? I bet you it is. So in the Dooku audiobook that they put out, Dooku first when he's first apprenticed by Yoda, Yoda is meditating under a tree, and Dooku, who's supposed to be one of the most talented Jedi in his class, um, goes and he tries to train under Yoda there, and Yoda just sits there and meditates for the first like several months and just forces him to sit there and meditate with him, though he's like a sword master, right? Is what he trains to be. So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
one of the first things that Dooku had to do. And I bet you this is him reminiscing about that at the same tree.
Yeah, you're right. You know, it might be the same tree. I mean, I guess there's definitely no reason that it couldn't be that tree for sure. That'd be kind of unique. I know we've seen another. There's been another tree in Yoda's visions in season 6 of the Clone Wars when he has that whole story arc when he goes to Dagobah for the first time and learns the path to immortality by the priestesses. In one of the visions that he has, there's a scene where a younger kind of Jedi Dooku and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Anakin and Ahsoka, like all the Jedi are kind of like living in this peacetime, and it's kind of an illusion. It's a reality that doesn't exist, but and I forget what the lesson is that Yoda's learning, but it's I think it's temptation or something. It's like the illusion of something that he wishes for that it's not a reality, and there's a tree in that sequence as well in like this courtyard of the Jedi temple, and I don't know if it's quite the same tree as this shot or if it's a different tree, but I know there's a couple kind of areas in the Jedi temple where there might be something like that. But that would be cool though if that was the same tree that you're talking about from that story, because that's such a great story.
It's such a great story.
All right, so we got the shot of a tiger licking his lips and about to make a kill at little Ahsoka, who kind of looks up at the tiger, ready to chomp down.
Tiny.
And she just kind of raises her arm and stops the tiger. And all I could think about is when Grogu stops the Rancor. that's 100% what I thought of when I saw that shot. I was like, wow, this is kind of taking the same principle of this like peaceful, not scared little being and just taming like the biggest of beasts, you know.
Well, I'm gonna go one step further because looks like some sort of a saber-toothed tiger. This looks like a scene out of the first Ice Age movie.
Yeah, it does. We have a character named Gantika who says Ahsoka is Jedi. And it's almost like her parents, or at least her mom is there. Maybe her dad is gone or something. I have no, or maybe that's her dad to the right. I'm not too sure, but it's almost like, yeah, it's almost like they saw her. What was that? Sorry.
I wonder if it might be her grandmother, because it looks like the person on the right is elderly.
Okay, yeah, maybe. It almost looks like they've seen her do something. Maybe they witnessed her kind of tame the tiger, I guess, and maybe that's kind of the moment that they realize, like, oh, she's special. She's got these powers. We don't know what it is, and maybe it's like the elder of the group kind of confirms to them, like that's what she is. She's a Jedi, and so maybe they contact Plo Koon or something like that. Maybe it goes from there, but that's kind of interesting. I like that. Can we flash forward to a scene where she ignites her lightsaber? She's in a new costume. Obviously, being a new show, they've kind of tweaked the models a little bit, and she's in a new costume that we haven't seen before. It's slightly different than the ones we've seen before.
This doesn't look like season 1 Ahsoka.
No.
I think it's closer to when she gets to her newer costume.
It's closer to that one, minus the hole near her. Like there's a different neck piece slash chest piece in her in her newer one, but it does look very similar.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's looking around at the clones. All right, we get the title cards from the creators of the Clone Wars, from the creators of Star Wars: The Bad Batch. And then we get a shot of a Jedi ship flying towards a very green and blue planet. That could be Plo Koon or something.
I recognize that ship, that design. Is that?
Yeah, it's a standard Jedi kind of transport that they use throughout Clone Wars quite a bit.
Wars?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They used it a lot in that show actually. It's the same ship that they get stuck on Mortis with. So it's almost like a Jedi shuttle. Like the Jedi use that ship a lot to get around, and yeah. Republic era ship though, and like Clone Wars era in terms of usage. It's like I'm taking a wild guess here, but it could be Plo Koon in there, or maybe a young Dooku and Qui-Gon if those ships were around.
That's where my money is, considering the rest of this is about them.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, so we flash to a scene where Qui-Gon and Dooku are kind of going into this, looks like a cantina or a bar or something. And then
I feel like the art for Dooku, he almost looks like he's 2D.
Like the way that it's lit or something. Are you looking at the doorway shot, 29 second?
Right now, yeah, like his face looks like it's drawn on.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. No, it's could be that it might not be a finished shot either. I guess we'll find out. There is something different about Dooku, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it might be that they based these models off of the younger, they probably referenced a younger photograph of Christopher Lee and Liam Neeson when doing those models, which is kind of interesting to think about. Because I don't know how many photos exist of a young Christopher Lee. I mean, the guy was super old when he did episode 2 and 3. I mean,
I'm sure they're around. Like he's a war veteran, right?
Yeah,
so they have at least military photos.
Right, he's kind of a legend. So actually, let's quickly look one up. Hold on, Christopher Lee, young photograph.
1940.
He's a good-looking guy. They've definitely kind of grown out the hair a bit more than I would have thought, but yeah, they made the hair quite poofy around the back of his head, but. I mean, I don't know. The face they kind of got down pat, I guess. What are your thoughts on this?
Looking at the doorway shot.
Yeah, just in general, just like the look of young Dooku. Like, do you feel like they kind of matched young Christopher Lee pretty well, or?
Yeah, I would actually say they must have referenced what he looked like. They definitely tightened his hairline compared to reality.
Yeah.
It's tough because Christopher Lee never had a beard when he was young. And that makes such a difference.
I find it interesting that he's already wearing a cape. I would have thought that the cape wouldn't have come in until later, because the cape symbolizes wealth, right? As opposed to the standard Jedi garb robes. So maybe it's there just for visual cues, like, yeah, this is Dooku, and then maybe they didn't want to go too far out of the way to not make it look like him, but
could be that. But I think it all has to do with the fact that he met his family when he was still a Padawan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And he became very close with his sister.
So you're saying maybe that. Yeah.
I think there's the influence there. Yeah. So I think he because that was so young that he figured all this out. I think it's always had an effect on who he is and then how he dresses himself. So he might not consider himself.
Yeah.
Which is also what we learn later through the Qui-Gon story as well, that Dooku doesn't really feel that the Jedi Order is what it should be, and obviously he passes that on to Qui-Gon as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and Qui-Gon definitely takes a
just,
different perspective towards that opinion.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it makes sense to me that if he doesn't feel that the Jedi Order is doing what it's supposed to be, and he probably is going to disassociate himself the way he's going to dress as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of this story really is a spot in which there is no story just yet because yeah, the Dooku Jedi Lost audiobook was fantastic. You know, anyone who loves or likes Count Dooku should definitely check it out. It was great. It was designed to be dramatized as well, but it really does tell the story from a kind of a flashback perspective. Like Ventress is looking through a journal and kind of reading up on Dooku's history as a younger guy, and it's based on it's based on records or something that his sister is kind of narrating, and it kind of absorbs you into that story, and then you see it from the first person perspective. But it is kind of it is cool to see him throughout periods of his younger days as a Padawan, and then as a knight, and then as a I think, do we see him as a master in that book? Does he do we see him with Qui-Gon in that novel, or does things end before it gets to that point? I forget.
Sorry, which novel?
In the audiobook for Dooku Jedi Lost.
Not in that one.
Okay.
No.
But it starts to insinuate that he discovers his origins. He discovers he comes from wealth. He discovers that he doesn't quite have
that one
in alignment with what the Jedi stand for anymore. Like he starts to kind of
it's all when he's young.
Yeah.
And it jumps between that and Asajj Ventress.
Right. Okay, so these 3 episodes, then what we'll see is probably the gap that we've kind of been feeling this whole time, is like when that story ends and kind of where episode 2 kind of begins. I feel like maybe we're going to see that transition of him really truly walking away from the Order, like the turning point that is of him realizing I need to be a Sith Lord, right? Like obviously there's a point in which, you know, he explains to Obi-Wan, he tells him the truth. He's like about Newt Gunray coming to him for help because of the, you know, Palpatine, you know, Sidious betraying him, and then probably Dooku going out of his way to meet up with this Sidious, and turns out that Sidious has had his eyes on Dooku all along, you know, realizes, oh yeah, it's Palpatine. I know the guy. He's known me for years as a Jedi Master. You know, we've got this thing in common. I'm going to join him and everything like that. He kind of falls into the clutches. But I think maybe we're going to see the turning point in which like that kind of happens, you know, like that, which is really cool to think about.
I'm curious to see where that falls in the timeline, just based on, I'm curious when the apprenticeship between Dooku and Qui-Gon ends, when Qui-Gon graduates to be a knight, and how long after that this takes place. Right.
Yeah, definitely. This I think is going to clear up a lot of questions in regards to that, for sure. All right, so 6 original shorts. You get the title card there. Anakin says, "The best way I can protect you." We see them in the dojo
to teach
training.
you how to protect yourself.
Yeah, to teach you how to protect yourself. Yeah, we see a Jedi whose corpse we recently saw in Obi-Wan Kenobi. Tara, is it? I'm blanking on the name, but the turtle face guy with the old hair. He's looking over Ahsoka training with the remote droids. Looks like the same dojo that we see a few times, I think, in Kanan's vision of him fighting the Grand Master as a temple guard. And then we flash to Anakin's younger, armored body face, kind of looking over at her with the clone troopers training. So that's interesting, because that's a different scene than the. So if you look at the dojo, go back to the dojo shot. That's the season 1 costume. You see that? So when she's training with the remotes, that's the season 1 costume, I think, or a variant of it, because she's got these things on her arms which weren't there before, but it looks like she is wearing the skirt with the white pants and like the tube top, right?
And she's not wearing that when she's fighting.
That's
training with the
right.
clone troopers?
Yeah, it looks like she's wearing a longer at least a longer. Well, I don't know. I mean, is there a break between her shirt and?
Looks like it.
Is there? Okay. Then maybe maybe it is the same. Maybe it is the same. I don't know. Yeah, it looks like they went back and kind of just took the season 1 costume and just made it a little more.
Just updated it.
Updated? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. That's
new textures.
All right, and then.
Pretty cool though.
It is cool.
Anakin's basically training her to survive Order 66.
Yeah, I mean, like
that's what he's doing.
Definitely, yeah. And we get the title card, 2 Stories of Fate. Is definitely definitely worth noting. I mean, the way that she's training in this trailer is the same way that that Order 66 goes for her. The same way that the clones try to execute her is the same way that she's been trained to fend off, right? Which is really, really interesting. And Anakin is responsible for her being able to survive. And we talked extensively about that in reviewing the final episodes of Clone Wars. I think we talked about it on Clone Wars Talk quite a bit with Diego, but I know we've brought it up as well in other episodes. And it's just a crazy thing to think about that, without Anakin, like at the very beginning of the show when he says that he says something in regards to her being his apprentice, right? He says, you wouldn't have made it as Obi-Wan's apprentice, but you might make it as mine. And I think he's kind of talking about her ability to succeed, right? And he recognizes that there's potential in her and that there's a lot of him in her as well. Obviously she's kind of reckless, just like he used to be. And I think he kind of admires that, but he sees the value in it. And I think he knows that, with rigorous training, maybe the same type of training that he put himself through, is to demonstrate his abilities, is probably going to work in Ahsoka's favor. And sure enough, it kind of does. She's one of the few Jedi that survives. So.
It's true. And ironically, is the opposite of what he probably would have liked to happen by that time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. We see a cool shot of Dooku grabbing his Jedi lightsaber or putting it on a table in front of somebody else, using it as a bit of a threat motivator, it seems.
So here he's very young. He doesn't have a beard yet.
No, yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. And it's also worth noting we see 3 variants of him through the trailer as well. So him without a beard, him with a short dark beard, and then we see him again with a more longer grayer beard at the very peak, I guess, of his story.
Mm-hmm.
I want to bring peace and order to the galaxy.
Yeah, that's before he becomes the Silver Fox that we know him episode 2.
Yeah. We see a shot of an army of blue armored people. And it looks like him and Qui-Gon are standing in front of a small set of villagers in defense, in a defense stance, and he whips out his blue lightsaber. And you see,
it looks like they're in the war, this separating the United States from the UK. Everyone's dressed like old timey villagers and stuff.
Yeah, it kind of looks, it's got medieval vibes to it, the house that even the building they're standing in front of, it's like
it's like the War of Independence.
It's like wood planks around the windows and like a white kind of stone concrete structure with wheelbarrows and stuff in front of it. What is this place?
Yeah, it's like Victorian age.
That's really cool. I mean, there is
it doesn't look like Star Wars
though. No, it definitely has more of a fantasy vibe to it, which is really cool because I mean, Star Wars has always had the fantasy elements in it, being space fantasy, but it's kind of neat to see.
Everyone's holding flintlock rifles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see American Revolution kind of era or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, we see a very concerned young Qui-Gon looking around. And
then you see the British Army.
yeah, the colonial kind of, yeah. Yeah, they're all raising their
This is exactly
blasters
what it
and-
is, man. We called it out before we even saw the episode.
Oh,
I guarantee
yeah.
you, there is like a rebellion. They want independence.
Oh, yeah,
Guarantee you.
Totally, totally. It looks like Dooku's raising up his hand to force choke someone with Qui-Gon Jinn saying, "Master, stop." And
You got George Washington here.
Oh,
He
he's
had,
choking.
43 seconds.
He's choking out the leader of the pack. Looks like and then he force pushes his apprentice and back into the building. Dang, I mean, already going a little edgy here in his younger years. We get the title card, One Destiny. And it is the only way you will truly have victory, my Padawan. Kind of brushes by Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon's kind of looking over like, what the heck just happened?
A young, starry-eyed Liam Neeson.
A young
hilarious.
Neeson. Yeah, a young Neeson. we get a shot of Mace Windu here from perhaps a different episode with glowing orange forest behind him. Yeah, it's a different episode. Dooku's got a very kind of like short black beard going on, and it looks like Windu's got his purple lightsaber even back then. Kind of interesting. We hear
What if they're ever going to show him without it? Have they ever done that?
Well, the first time we saw him in this trailer, he didn't have a beard.
Sorry, Mace Windu.
Oh, well, okay, so I've got a whole thing with Mace Windu and his purple lightsaber because prior to Attack of the Clones, the action figures and all the toys and stuff had Mace Windu with a blue lightsaber. Yeah. And same with all the video games and everything, like the Game Boy Advance game, Jedi Power Duels and all that stuff. So, you know, that was before Sam Jackson got his wish, and it was before he was even seen with it on. So I always thought that if they, for some reason, had Windu show up with a lightsaber before Phantom Menace, that it would just be blue, just to kind of like pay tribute. Yeah, and just to like pay tribute to like those fans and stuff with those toys from '99 or whatever that might be kicking around with blue lightsabers, right? So yeah, but it looks like they just kind of like, you know what, let's screw it, let's just go continuity, you know, make it purple.
That's too bad, because I kind of like the storyline of him having that transition, because I know he earned it in the original EU.
Yeah,
he earned the purple because he's got originally there was 2 crystals in there. He had a red Sith crystal as well as his personal blue Jedi crystal.
Right. I guess they just didn't want to go the extra mile to explain that stuff, but that would have been pretty neat to get into Windu's story a bit more. Yeah.
And that being said, now they did change how crystals work, and the fact that you can get practically any color now.
Yeah. Now you can get any color. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I want like ambery orange. Yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
We see Anakin saying again. He's like really kind of laying it on thick with the training. Ahsoka's training sequence flashes towards a later part in the Clone Wars where we see Phase 2 clones in the background now, and she's got her dual green lightsabers now in her newer costume.
And Anakin's got his scar,
the one that she got from Season 3, and then we go back to Phase 1 clones. Oh, it looks like she got hit, and boom, it goes back to the Season 1 costume again.
So they're cutting between 2 different time periods.
Yeah, they're cutting between 2 different training periods. Yeah, 3 if you count the dojo.
Yeah, you're right. Her costume changes halfway through the fight.
Yeah, she jumps up in the air and does a flip, and then it went to an earlier sequence where she gets shot, and it's the costume we saw earlier. Yeah.
Actually, when we see her with the dual lightsabers, I don't think that's training. I think they're cutting between her training and between her fight in the final episode of Attack of the Clones, Clone Wars.
Well, they got the training bolts out, like in the finale for Season 7.
Is that live fire? I thought they were
trying
fire,
to
stun her. Were they shooting stuns?
No, they started shooting real rounds. But they were shooting stun rounds in Season 5 when the bombing situation happened and she was trying to get away from the clones. Maybe you're thinking of that part.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of that. But during this current session with the Phase 2 troopers, is clearly on a Benedictor starship. Like they're in the
Yeah. Oh,
like
the other
the
thing
port
is
area.
in season 7 at the end, she had her blue costume. She had her blue
Oh, okay.
Mandalorian costume on, and not this one, the burgundy one. But
Okay.
I do like your
The
theory.
same location.
Yeah,
In
it's
the
the same
hangar.
location. Oh, like otherwise that would have held up pretty well. But yeah, the costume I think is kind of the biggest clue. Like that's the one that she has between the midway season 3 point up until about season 5 when she leaves the Order, and then we don't see that costume anymore. So it's yeah, she does a flip, and then because you got the tights with the gray tights with the holes in the side, and
Yeah,
then
the diamonds.
yeah, and then we flip back to a phase 1 clone blasting her in the face, and she's got the costume that we saw earlier that replaces her old tube top costume. Looks more like a Jedi trainee costume, which is, I guess, a little less juvenile than the tube top skirt thing. I was never a fan of that costume. But it does look like, oh, we get a pull out shot of Rex in the background. Is that Rex in the background? Yeah, it looks like Rex in the background. Yeah, that's her earlier costume as well with the white tights. Lots of training sequences with Ahsoka. What do you think of these droid designs? Whipping out blasters in the forest, clearly against Mace Windu and Dooku.
Yeah, they have like Roman armor essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like Centurion armor.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I'm liking it. It's probably like an early kind of pre-Clone Wars assassin droid model. And we see Windu and Dooku kind of deflecting blaster bolts. And because he's got the beard, I would imagine this is the second episode that we see Dooku's storyline. So
Yeah.
probably maybe this, you know, just throwing it out there, maybe it could be Qui-Gon. Maybe he's been knighted already, and he's no longer Dooku's Padawan, so to speak. And it might be Dooku and Windu on a mission together, just as two masters, right?
That's what it looks like.
And it looks like,
I actually think this is taking place on Andor.
Ooh, that's
just because
that's a good theory. Yeah.
Because Andor has always been super Roman in their art style, and if you see the guy's armor after the droid fight here, it looks like the Andor armor that we see in the Clone Wars arcs.
Yeah, that's a great theory. I like that. You know what? That actually explains a lot, because they end up joining the Separatists, right? Initially.
Yep.
So, yeah, maybe there's something there that went wrong. Maybe it's all Dooku's fault. Or maybe Dooku being the leader of the Separatists, maybe they have a respect for him being the Jedi that actually did something for their home planet. Maybe they figure, hey, let's go and join the Separatists. He's the guy that saved our world before. Let's do it again, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. There's like a connection there.
Yeah. I could buy that. Yeah, maybe this is Andor. And then it looks like Mace Windu is trying to convince Dooku to stand down from killing that guy. And we get the next shot, a very solemn-looking Dooku with a longer black beard. Probably the last episode in his series. He's looking very sad about something. And it says streaming October 26th. You know what? That's possible. It's possible that we might see the overlap of Phantom Menace with Qui-Gon's funeral, Qui-Gon's death. Maybe they'll reiterate that sequence. Maybe we're gonna see a young Dooku at the other side of the camera at Qui-Gon's funeral. Wouldn't that be crazy?
Yeah, I didn't think about that, because he would have been around for like
because there's 10 years between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and in Attack of the Clones he explains to Obi-Wan that it was 10 years ago that Newt Gunray approached him, and that whole thing started, the whole ball started to roll at that point onwards, right? So it's actually at the overlap of Phantom Menace that Dooku really kind of leaves, I guess. And in the Darth Plagueis book, in the EU, in the old EU, in the Darth Plagueis book, Dooku was still around when Anakin came to the Order, and people were all abuzz that, oh, this is the Chosen One, he's here, right? And I remember there was a chapter in which Palpatine was consulting with Dooku and another Jedi and I forget who it was. It might have been Windu or somebody else, about Anakin's arrival. And there was like a sequence in there in which kind of hinted like, yeah, Dooku already knows who Palpatine is at this point in time. And this is like overlapping with the timeline of Phantom Menace at this point. So it's possible that in the 3-episode arc Dooku thing, the third episode could have some overlap there with Phantom Menace and Qui-Gon's funeral, which is really, really interesting to think about. It's also worth noting that we haven't gotten there yet, but Yaddle shows up in this trailer, and Yaddle is in the Phantom Menace. She's not there in Attack of the Clones. So this has to be...
She dies somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So this third episode of Dooku has to be overlapping with Phantom Menace or takes place after Phantom Menace. Yeah.
And something else just dawned on me here. So this is backtracking a little bit. But when we're talking about the kind of like the farmers or whatever who look like they're American revolutionists.
Yeah.
So it looks like Dooku is helping them separate from that government, and that is exactly what he tries to do later by leading the separatists.
Right.
So there's also foreshadowing there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Man, I'm getting so excited for this Dooku arc, man.
Yeah, I know. Dooku's always been such an interesting character, so
Yeah.
I'm glad they're finally going to flesh him out a bit.
Well, and you know, Christopher Lee brings such a presence to that character with a villain who brings, you know, if you don't count Clone Wars at all, in the live action movies, he's got such little screen time, but he's just got such a weight in the story, like, such a presence, right? And you know, and he's such a phenomenal actor, and you know, just legend in Lord of the Rings and
Saruman.
Yes, as Saruman and Star Wars, and you know, it's just great. He's just such a great casting choice, and I mean, I'm really looking forward to this. So we go back to a young baby Ahsoka riding on the back of this tiger thing that she was patting the nose earlier. Yeah. It's kind of funny. Like I don't know about that, but maybe that's the miracle that they're like, okay, she must have superpowers.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get a shot of Bail Organa in this trailer, and this is kind of bringing that conversation back to what we were talking about earlier, the Ahsoka novel. In the Ahsoka novel, that's the first time that Ahsoka kind of approaches, or Bail approaches her, she approaches Bail, or whatever. I forget the order of things, but that's kind of when she starts to become involved with the rebellion and starts to be known as Fulcrum, which is which leads over the next couple of years all the way through up until Star Wars Rebels Season 1 finale. So that's overlapping story with the Ahsoka novel. And there's a shot at the very end, which I'll talk about in a bit, with the Inquisitor, and that's also a scene that happens in the Ahsoka novel as well, which we can talk about in just a moment. We get a shot of some people in the cantina, and then boom, Ahsoka in a hood.
That droid.
Yeah, we got a shot of the droid in the cantina.
There's that. It's the same type of droid that you see in Jabba's palace.
Yeah. Some typical cantina customers there. Probably the Dooku Qui-Gon episode. And then after that, we do get a shot of Ahsoka in a hood. Very much looks like she's at Padme's funeral with very similar people in the front row holding candles. She's standing just 2 rows behind, trying to stay anonymous. Cool. Yeah, and I love the fact that she's there. And I wonder if that's the beginning of the 3rd episode that we'll see, because I don't know how much jumping around each episode does in its 20-something minute time frame. But assuming that the second one isn't after the Purge, I'm assuming just the 3rd one is. That's when she fights the Inquisitor that she ends up killing in the novel. And that's the one that she takes the lightsaber crystals from, makes her white lightsabers from, and that's the Inquisitor that we see at the very last shot of this trailer. But I'm assuming she's at Padme's funeral right kind of before all that stuff happens. But between the funeral and the fight that she has, there's like a whole novel in there. So I'm kind of curious as to how they're gonna juggle the time frame of, like, you know, they're gonna do like title cards where it says like couple weeks later or whatever. Like, I'm kind of curious as to how that's all going to take place,
unless I feel like they'd have to, because it doesn't seem right that the previous episode would end with the funeral.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Qui-Gon and Dooku fighting it out back in the old American Revolution. Deflecting some blaster bolts. Only on Disney Plus. And then we get a shot of Ahsoka Tano walking down the halls of... Is that the Jedi Temple? Or what is that? It could be. It could be the... Yeah, you know what? I love the idea that she would go back to the temple after the purge is over.
Oh, after the purge.
That would be really cool. You know, if that does happen, much like Obi-Wan and Yoda, they get back there and it's too late kind of thing. I would love...
Yeah.
I mean, I assume that that Ahsoka just hasn't been back there, but maybe she does go back there.
Well, what's the symbols on the banners on the roof?
I can't quite tell.
It looks almost like ancient China, like something that they would something in ancient China they would display.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. I don't know, it's just the pillars for me that kind of... Oh, you know what? This might be Naboo. It might be right before the funeral or maybe right after. Maybe she kind of gets a head start. Yeah,
there's a lot of pillars.
She's got the same kind of cloak on that she does at the funeral. So yeah, maybe that's what it is. Probably Padme's funeral. And she says, "I'm tired of fighting." We get a shot of young Dooku.
Yeah, she's got the same hood on. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Get a shot of young Dooku there. We got a nice close-up shot of Captain Rex whipping out his blasters, probably into the training sequence, because he shoots some stun blasts. And then it looks like those ones clip Yoda in the face.
Yoda?
Sorry, Ahsoka. It looks like those ones clip Ahsoka in the face. Yoda.
Poor Yoda. Didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
He was just walking by.
I like this shot of the Lat gunship kind of coming in for a landing somewhere. And I don't know where this
is. It's like some
is.
sort of military base or something.
Yeah. I don't know where this is, but it's pretty cool looking. Like I've always loved the Lat gunship. It's always such a good
almost looks like they're on the surface of the Death Star.
Yeah, it kind of does.
But like, it's not. But kind of, if you want to think of it as like a giant, mechanical platform or planet, that's what it looks like.
Oh, you know what? I'm looking at that building, and it's got the Republic logo in a circular. It's a circular logo on above the door, like halfway up.
I was looking at that too. That doesn't look like the Republic logo to me.
No.
No, it looks like almost like a sun inside of a black circle.
Yeah, you're right. To me, those almost look like barracks, like those giant domey kind of caterpillar buildings. So I don't know, maybe. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. Although the Republic logo does kind of it looks similar to that, and it might be that. I don't know. It's a bit far away for me to tell, but this could be a clone barracks base. Maybe if it's not that, maybe it's a prison or I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that could be. But it looks like it's on Coruscant. You got the city in the background there. And we get a shot of Anakin and Ahsoka in the Jedi Temple at the window. And they're looking at somebody.
And then we get good old Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Mullet Kenobi.
Rocking the mullet, that's right.
Rocking the mullet.
What on earth is Yoda? Look at him. Look at his art design in this.
Yeah.
It looks like a frog.
So this
more of a frog than normal.
Yeah, more of a frog than normal. This is definitely a shot during Clone Wars time. Because Obi-Wan's all armored up. So is the Jedi behind Yoda, which it looks like it could be Plo Koon or something back there. I don't really know what's going on in this sequence, but it looks like it could be in the dojo based on the background. They might be watching Ahsoka train.
Yeah, that seems likely.
And then we get a shot of a Jedi funeral. And we get Dooku and Tera Sinube kind of front and center as they look at a singular coffin being lowered into the pit. We've seen Jedi funerals before in the Clone Wars. And Dooku says, "I've been warning them about We get some close up of his face. We get a shot of the other side of we get Windu on the other side of Stas Ali or something. Warning them about the coming darkness, he says. And we get a close up shot of Anakin when he says that. That's kind of a pretty good cut. And then our first shot of a lightsaber going through the soil. That looks like it could be the Inquisitor.
I was gonna say I think that's the Inquisitor, and then this is in the burning fields, and that's one of the farmers on the ground there.
Yeah, on Rada, right, the planet that Ahsoka hides out at for a while. Young Neeson again, green lightsaber blazing. Get Windu looking back over his shoulder. We get Ahsoka in her training sequence again. And then we get the shot of, this Inquisitor with the mask whipping out his second side of the blade. It's all flaming everywhere.
Man, this guy's mask is intense.
Yeah, I'm really digging it. Like compared to all the other Inquisitors that have all the very Vader-y kind of polished black going on, this guy is really edgy. Like it's got the
This guy looks like a villain in a 1980s horror movie.
Yeah, it kind of does. It's a bit nervous looking. Yeah, I really like that. Kind of nightmarish.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we get a shot of Rex popping on his helmet. And he says, "Let's hope all that training pays off." Yeah, you got that right.
See, to me, that feels like it's them trying to make a break forward at the end of Clone Wars.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. Yeah, it's just that for me, the costume, maybe I don't know. Maybe they could redo the shots with a different costume. Maybe they don't want to spoil it or something. But the costume kind of gives away the time frame that it's not season 7 overlap. But yeah, who knows? We got a shot of Dooku. This is after he was looking sad earlier in the trailer, but now he's looking angry, and he's got his blue lightsaber kind of ready to go. And, ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the shot that really kind of does it in for me. You can almost see the blue of the glow against Yaddle's face, and you know where she is, right? Like this is the place where Dooku goes at the very, very end of Attack of the Clones to the warehouse on the warehouse district in Coruscant, where he meets Palpatine. He says,
"Oh, okay.
Everything is going according to plan."
And then, Palpatine goes, "Good, you have done well, my apprentice." And, they kind of, and then he says,
"War has begun."
And then they kind of just walk away, right? And that's after he takes the plans to Coruscant,
Yeah.
I would take the plan.
Yeah,
they would be safer there with my master.
So yeah, this is in that building. This is like, it almost looks like Yaddle has like figured out where Dooku's been going, where he's been spending his secret, where he's been.
Could be that.
I don't know. It looks like
she's off Yaddle.
It looks like Yaddle's frowning at Dooku, going like, okay, something's going on here. And I guess she whips out her lightsaber. They start fighting. That's in the second shot. And this is with Dooku and his lengthy beard. He's got the longest beard in this whole trailer. So I don't know. Like, what's your stab at what's going on here?
I think that's actually a really good theory, because we all know Yaddle just disappears between episode 1 and episode 2. So I think them tying it where she figures out what's happening with Dooku, and then he's forced to get rid of her, makes a lot of sense.
You think that maybe is that the funeral that we're seeing take place? Because
no, I don't think it's that, because it's weird then that there's a starship in the background on the screen left. It looks like she flew in there.
Through the open window. You mean through the doorway of like where she's standing looking at Dooku?
I think so. And I also think that this shot is specifically very ominous, because if you look at the window behind her, it looks like a mouth with sharp teeth.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's the same door that we see open and close when Dooku's Solar Surfer ship kind of comes in, and it's a very ominous looking kind of warehouse door with jaggedy kind of edges on it, which is really cool. So it's clearly definitely the building that he is used to going, and it makes me wonder if maybe they'll tie in kind of why that place is where he goes to meet Palpatine. Like maybe that's where he does his shady business, and like it's his kind of go-to. And so yeah, but I don't know, like maybe like his beard here looks ever so slightly longer and more pointy than the one at the Jedi funeral scene. So like maybe I don't know. I was thinking that he fights Yaddle, maybe he kills Yaddle, and then maybe he kind of plays it down, like plays it cool at the funeral, kind of pretends it's not, wasn't his fault or something like that. Like I'm just kind of
I see.
yeah, but I don't know. Maybe it's
played
just
the shots out of order, so that's her funeral.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm thinking like maybe that's her funeral, and this is pre-Clone Wars because we're seeing all the Jedi in like their classic robes and stuff without the armor. So it's definitely earlier on, and it would make sense if it was her funeral. But I don't know. I'm unsure about the beard stuff. The length of the beard in that shot looks shorter, but I don't know. Maybe it's not the exact same sequence. It could be a different sequence, and it, yeah. Again, trailers are so hard. Like they're all cut out of order, right? So
yeah.
But yeah, I'm just kind of trying to put two and two together here because there's only 6 episodes. There's really not a whole lot of content to. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room. Exactly. Yeah. So I think what we're seeing.
I think that's a solid theory. I think that's gonna be what happens.
Yeah. We see Yaddle jumping around much like Yoda does when Dooku's fighting Yoda. And then we see the very famous fight that we read about in the Ahsoka novel of her fighting the Inquisitor. That flashes back and forth between Dooku versus Yaddle. It looks like a Jedi starfighter flying towards that hideout that Dooku is fighting Yaddle in. Same camera angle and everything as his ship from Attack of the Clones in like the very far side of Coruscant where the sky is all bloody red and it's like in the warehouse district. So that's maybe a shot before when Yaddle goes to investigate. And then we go back to the battle earlier on with Qui-Gon and young Dooku. Looks like they take out some sort of Greedo. What is this piece called? Rodian? Yeah, Rodian.
Rodian, yeah.
We get a shot of Mace Windu disarming someone with the Force. Dooku's still with the chokehold on that guy, flaring up his blue lightsaber. And then we get the really close-up shot of the Inquisitor saying, "And who might you be?" And I guess one can only assume that she'll say something epic before she kills him. But yeah, that's the Inquisitor that she disarms, kills, and takes the red lightsaber crystals, the Kyber crystals in his Inquisitor saber, purifies them with the Force, turns them white, and makes her own white lightsabers out of it that we see later in Star Wars Rebels. So I am super excited for this. Yeah, what are your thoughts now that we've kind of broken that down?
I'm a lot more excited for this than I was before I watched the trailer.
Nice.
Significantly more excited.
Yeah. I feel like...
I know when they first described it at Celebration, it didn't sound that interesting.
Yeah, well, now that we've kind of taken a closer look, like, again, like what's exciting about this is not only are we going to see some really cool stories play out with these spotlight characters, but being an anthology series, they can jump around like this and, they can get a really nice arc out of it. So the question being, I mean, if they do more of these things, like what kind of characters would you like to see?
I want to see Mace Windu get his purple lightsaber.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah, get a young Windu story going on there. That'd be pretty sweet.
This might be the only way they could actually do a Yoda story as well, because his age is so long, right?
Yeah. I would love to see a young Windu story that kind of focuses in on his what's the right word I'm looking for? Maybe contempt towards Anakin, or his negative feelings towards him.
Just like a montage of catching Anakin in awkward situations.
Yeah, just him.
Anakin's doing like a midnight raid to the kitchen in his boxers.
Yeah.
Mace Windu finds him in the hallway with a bunch of snacks and no pants on.
Skywalker,
that sort of thing.
That's tomorrow's lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I mean, I think focusing in on that character kind of prior to his demise. I know people are really hoping that they'll bring him back, right? That he survived the fall and all that stuff. But yeah, doing a montage of kind of like him early on, we get so many shots of him kind of like, he's such a concerned guy. He always looks worried. Like it would be kind of neat to get some backstory, maybe something that goes from his appearance in Dooku's arc, kind of flowing into that storyline a little bit. Prior to Phantom Menace, his worries about the dark side, visions being clouded, all that stuff, and this boy shows up, and he's like, no, he's not. We can't train him. Like it's too dangerous. And then boom. Kid becomes a Jedi. It's like, what the heck did I just say? and then time goes by. You get the next episode. You get all the stuff with the Clone War starting, and it's just like one thing after the next. And I feel like it would be such a cool 3-episode arc to kind of see his kind of worries develop. And in Revenge of the Sith, like we see his
right at the end.
He's just like, I mean, he doesn't trust Anakin, right? Like, like in episode 3, like we clearly kind of say like, very dangerous putting them together. Like, I don't trust them, right? And it's like, how did it get to that point? Like we've seen Anakin save Mace's life in the Clone Wars. Like, how is he so mistrustful of Anakin? Like that's one of the reasons what pushed him over the edge. Anakin, that is. But I mean, really, like, how did it get to that point? Like, I would just love to know that after all this time, how he's not redeemed himself in Windu's eyes. Like, what led him to that?
It does feel like there's something missing, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a storyline there that could be explored. So Mace Windu is definitely a character in my books that almost deserves a 3-episode anthology series for that. And I don't know. Okay. Like, there might be another cool one. As for somebody.
What about Palpatine?
Oh, Palpatine would be awesome. Oh, dude, like if we got an animated adaptation of the Darth Plagueis novel, I think I would flip. Like,
that's what I mean. Like, that'd be so cool.
That'd be so cool. I mean, like, I would hope that I could just like jump out that window right there and then fly right back up again, so that I could just watch it in my shit. Like, I don't know. I'd be so psyched, like just jumping up and down. Like, we get Darth Plagueis adapted, yeah.
Dude, they've got to do it at some point.
Launching fireworks off my roof,
right? The canon stuff they brought back was all the good stuff. So I feel like at some point they're gonna have to do this.
Yeah. They have to do it. I mean, like we're getting so close. I feel like all the stuff that they've been getting has just been great. And and then they pull this, and then they pull the Tales of the Jedi out from under the table, and it's like, what? Like, I never thought we would get this. Never thought we would get a young Ahsoka, young Dooku storyline. I mean, like that's awesome. But it's young Palpatine. I mean, people have been wanting that for a long time. I know Diego's like, that's the only thing he wants. Like, I showed him the trailer for Andor, and he's like, it's gonna suck. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it's gonna be great. And I go, first of all, it's gonna be great. But he's like, but yeah, that's what he said. He's like, I just want a young Palpatine story. But I don't know. He's all about the young villain stories. He also wants a young Voldemort movie.
Right.
So like, I don't know if anyone wants a young Voldemort movie.
Just tell him to just watch Dexter.
Yeah.
All his life.
Yeah, he wants a young Palpatine story really bad, and I don't know. He hasn't read Darth Plagueis. He's not much of a reader, but
oh man, you should do the audiobook for that one. He would love it.
Yeah, he would. I'm gonna try and get him on it.
How can you be so on about a young Palpatine story and not read Darth Plagueis?
I don't know.
Like, that is the young Palpatine story.
Yeah, it is. It is. As far as I'm concerned, it's as canon as it gets. Like, I don't think there's a whole lot of stuff that interferes with the Darth Plagueis book, right? So, I mean, I don't know.
It depends if they want to play with Anakin's origin or not.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the biggest kind of like, But again, it's all, I guess it all comes down to perception. Like how do you perceive that? It's such a weird event that happens that like how would anyone perceive that
Space
event from happening?
Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. Like, was it the Force fighting back? Was it a direct result of Plagueis, doing his thing? There's
Is he
numerous.
the chosen one?
The book never quite kind of confirms as like A leads to B, but it always kind of like insinuates like, oh, maybe this is it, maybe it's that, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of leaves it ambiguous, and I think I like it left that way because like we don't need to know the answer to everything, but it is such a great story, and anyone who wants to see a young kind of origins of the Sith prior to the movies that don't want to go back through thousands of history of Sith Lords, the Darth Plagueis book's a great place to start. It's the perfect segue into the Phantom Menace. I don't think there's a story that
overlaps
does it
the Phantom Menace a bit.
yeah,
as
it
well.
overlaps by like a good quarter of the book, which is a crazy amount of time. And first time I read, I was mind blown. I was like, dang, I didn't know he was alive. Like
Yeah.
during all this stuff, like that's great. So it really adds to that whole vibe of the trailer or the title of the movie, Phantom Menace. I mean, there's all this stuff going on behind the scenes we just don't know about. So,
Yeah, exactly. That's actually one of the things I really liked about it as well.
Yeah.
Because it tied a lot of stuff together, and I know we brought up the Sithari quite a bit as well, where Palpatine claims himself to be the Sithari, which is like the Sith's version of the Chosen One.
Yeah.
And that I think is rooted in the Plagueis novel.
It is, yeah, it is kind of rooted in there, and they really paint him out to be this like demon child kind of thing. Like when he's younger, he kill his family or something. Like he does some like horrific things.
Just his, I think it's like his father or something.
Yeah, he does some terrible things. It kind of reminds me of that movie Brightburn, where it's like a horror / kind of alternate take on if Superman came to Earth and he was like evil, like as a kid, being raised on a farm and stuff like that. And all of a sudden he goes like nuts and just loses it, and he's got all his powers and everything like that. He's like, what do we do? Like he's unstoppable, right? Like it kind of reminded me of that a little bit. It's like, what do you do when a Sith Lord who's like a kid having a temper tantrum just loses his mind? This is the Sith Lord of all Sith Lords we're talking about. Like it's a little freaky.
That's also the Voldemort storyline too, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why people are so fascinated with like a young Tom Riddle, right? Because Tom Riddle's just like Voldemort, but in like a kid form. It's like there's something really edgy and creepy about that.
The ultimate goth kid,
yeah. It's like this is a kid who's like killed 7 people. Like,
yes,
what the heck, right? There's a love for that book and a love for that story, and I hope it gets adapted at some point. But
it's just tough because they got to do it in a way that it's serious, that people can enjoy it, but Disney's wants it to be family oriented. So I don't know how they're gonna do it and make it good.
I guess
it'd have to be like the Logan of Star Wars.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like we could see some slight more edgy, dark stuff in the Acolyte. When that Disney Plus show hits home, I guess if it hits home, that is. I mean, it'll hit Disney Plus sooner or later. But I mean, when that show kind of happens, it makes me wonder. It's like, okay, this takes place in the High Republic. At the very end, we're gonna see some Sith action going on. The Acolyte is a slang term for someone who's pursuing dark wielding Force powers and not quite a Sith Lord. But it could also be a key term for describing someone who will become a Sith Lord who isn't already and hasn't gotten to the point of having a master yet. So yeah, I don't really know what's going on with that, but we could see some Sithy kind of action going on in there, and if it's edgy enough that it's like got the right tone and hits home, then maybe they'll be like, okay, yeah, let's do it. We can hit this audience successfully. People like this, like, let's go. So maybe that'll be the test run. I mean, the time frame would fit up well too. I mean, Acolyte ends, do the Darth Plagueis adaptation, like it would be like A over B kind of thing. It would kind of flow in well. So
Interesting.
Yeah. But I mean, we're running pretty short for time here, so I feel like we're gonna have to take another look in the coming days and weeks with this brand new trailer for Andor. I don't know if we'll ever get around to that. I mean, seeing as the show premieres next week on the Wednesday, but Mandalorian Season 3, we're going to definitely take a look at that trailer at some point in the near future and break that down as well. This is, I noticed, a modified version of the trailer that was shown at Celebration. That's really interesting. Yeah, and I got a few things to bring up about that when we go around in the future for that. And there's a possibility that Kirk from Orbit Key could be joining us with some things to say, some new products on the shelf. I know that they had a really big launch with the desk mats recently. And we have Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi desk mats to talk about as well with him. So we'll get around to that as well. Lots of stuff on the podcast to look forward to. So any last thoughts, words, things you might want to bring up before we wrap up here?
We got a lot of Star Wars coming up here. There's going to be a big flash of shows. If Bad Batch doesn't get moved, which I kind of hope it doesn't, I kind of want us to, just like bathe in the glory of modern Star Wars here. So,
yeah,
hoping for some good stuff.
Hoping for some good stuff, yeah. And I guess we'll see you very soon, and we'll also see you, I guess, in the after shows and reviews for Andor. Really exciting, right around the corner.
Yeah, I'll be there.
All right.
Oh man, see you out there. Keep flying.
All right, and thank you all for tuning in to Star Wars Escape Pod. Once again, this was our first, probably out of 2, maybe 3. We'll take a look at Mandalorian Season 3 down the road in the coming weeks, as well as Andor, if we got time to squeeze that out. I know we got a book review coming out for Shadows of the Sith, and that's going to be really exciting because that book was it was fantastic. I mean, it's an era that not many people know the stories or the events that transpired between episodes 6 and 7, and it's been eye-opening, and there's a lot of parallels in there. Looking forward to bringing a lot of stuff up, and a lot of Lord of the Rings vibes actually I got from that book as well, which was really curious. So I'm looking forward to chatting about it, and we're going to do that this week or the next, and or whenever it releases, that is. If you guys want to reach out and contact the podcast for any particular reason, let us know your feedback, or let us know what you're looking forward to in regards to Tales of the Jedi. You can send us a tweet or Instagram message. Give us a follow on either of those. I run those accounts, and you can find at SW Escape Podcast. That's the same on Twitter and Instagram. Email is swescapepodcast@gmail.com. And you can tune into the podcast just about anywhere in the galaxy, whether it be Google, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, wherever you are, you can find Star Wars Escape Pod. Best way to help us out is by dropping a 5-star. If you're using an app that has reviews, throwing a 5-star really helps people discover the show. And as far as discovering the show goes, it would be really helpful if you share this show with a friend. That's the best kind of help you can give us. That being said, we'll see you in the next one, and may the Force be with you.